So, today is the day for our last read aloud video. For we will be reading part 2 of chapter 27. Here it comes. Well then, Gregor, I know the gift I would wish to give you, but you can only find it yourself, said Vicus. What is it? Said Gregor. Hope, said Vicus. There are times it will be very hard to find. Times when it will be much easier to choose hate instead. But if you want to find peace, you must first be able to hope it is possible. You don't think I can do that? Said Gregor. On the contrary, I have great hope that you can, said Vicus with a smile. Gregor slid the sword back across the table to him. Can you tell him I said thanks, but no thanks? You cannot imagine how happy I am to deliver that message, said Vicus. And now you must rest. You have a journey tomorrow. I do? Where? Not back to the Deadland, said Gregor, feeling a little ill. No. I think it is time we send you home, said Vicus. They put a bed in his dad's room that night so that he and Boots could sleep close by. Now that he was going home, Gregor began to let thoughts of Lizzie and his grandma, and most of all his mom, come back into his head. Would they still be okay when he got back? He remembered his talk with Vicus and tried to hope for the best. As soon as his dad and Boots had woken, they were taken to the dock where Gregor had made his escape the first night. A group of Underlanders had assembled to see them off. Ares, we'll take you to the portal above the waterway, said Vicus. It will be a short distance from there to your home. Meredith pressed a handful of paper into his hand. He realized it was money. I took it from the museum. Vicus said you may need it to travel in the Overland. Thanks, said Gregor. He wondered exactly where the waterway gateway was in relationship to his apartment. He guessed he'd find out soon enough. The way is safe now, but do not tarry. As you know, things can shift quickly in the Underland, said Solivet. Gregor suddenly realized he would never see these people again. He was surprised by how much he would miss them. He'd been through a lot together. They'd been through a lot together. He hugged everybody goodbye, and when he came to Luxa, he thought maybe he should just shake her hand, but he went ahead and hugged her anyway. She actually gave him a hug back. It was a little stiff, but then she was a queen. Well, so if you're ever in the Overland, drop by, said Gregor. Perhaps we shall see you here again someday, said Luxa. Oh, I don't know. My mom's probably going to ground me for the rest of my life just to keep me safe, said Gregor. What means this, ground you? Asked Luxa. Never let me leave the apartment, said Gregor. That is not what it says in the Prophecy of Bane, said Luxa thoughtfully. What? What's that? Asked Gregor, feeling panic rise up in him. Did Vicus not tell you? It follows the Prophecy of Grey, said Luxa. But I'm not in it. I mean, am I? I'm not, right? Vicus? Said Gregor. Ah, you must depart directly if you mean to catch the current, said Vicus, slipping the backpack with Boots onto his shoulders and leading him back to Ares, who was already carrying his dad. What aren't you telling me? What's the Prophecy of Bane? Insisted Gregor as he felt himself lifted onto Ares' back. Oh, that, said Vicus dismissively. That is very vague. No one has been able to explain it for centuries. Fly you high, Gregor the Overlander. And Vicus gave Ares a sign as he spread his wings. What is it, though? What does it say? Shouted Gregor as they rose into the air. Bye-bye, Timp. See you soon, said Boots, waving cheerfully. No, Boots, no, we're not coming back, said Gregor. The last thing Gregor saw as they left the palace was Vicus waving. He was not sure, but he thought he heard the old man say, See you soon. Down the river he went again, but this time he was flying over the foaming water on Ares' strong back. They soon reached the beach where he'd encountered Fangor and Shed. He caught a glimpse of the blackened ground where the fire had been. 10 minutes later, the river fed into what was either a sea or the biggest lake Gregor had ever seen. Giant waves rolled across the water's surface and crashed onto rocky beaches. A pair of guards on bats appeared and escorted them over the water. Gregor didn't see any rats around, but who knew what else might be down there looking for a meal. He caught a glimpse of a 20-foot spiked tail as some creature flipped it out of the waves and then dove. Not even gonna ask, he thought. The guards held their positions as Ares began to ascend into a vast stone cone. At the base, it may have been a couple of miles in diameter. A strange misty wind seemed to be blowing them upward. Must be the currents, thought Gregor. Ares flew in tighter and tighter circles as they ascended. He had to close his wings to squeeze through the opening at the top. Suddenly, they were zipping through tunnels that looked familiar. They were not built of stone, but of concrete, so Gregor knew they must almost be home. The bat landed on a deserted stairway and nodded his head upward. I cannot go further, said Ares. That is your way home. Fly you high, Gregor the Overlander. Fly you high, Ares, said Gregor, and his hand wrapped tightly around Ares' claw for a moment, and then he let go, and the bat vanished in the darkness. Gregor had to help his dad up a long flight of stairs. There was a stone slab in the ceiling at the top. When Gregor pushed it aside, a wave of fresh air hit his face. He pulled himself out, and his fingers found grass. Oh, man, he said, hurrying to help his dad. Oh, man, look! Moon, said Boots happily, pointing into the sky. Yes, moon, little girl. Look, Dad, it's the moon. His dad was too winded by the climb to answer. For a few minutes, they just sat in the grass, staring up at the beauty of the night sky. Gregor looked around and realized by the skyline they were in Central Park. He could hear the traffic just beyond a row of trees. He slid the stone slab back into place and helped his dad up. Come on, let's grab a cab. Go see Mama, Boots, he asked. Yes, said Boots emphatically. Go see Mama. It must have been very late. Hardly anyone was out on the streets, but a few restaurants were still open. It was just as well since they made a funny sight, all dressed in their Underland clothes. Gregor flagged down a cab and they piled into the back seat. The driver either didn't notice or didn't care how they looked. He'd probably seen everything. Gregor pressed his face against the window, drinking in the buildings, the cars, and lights. All those beautiful lights. It seemed to take no time at all to reach their apartment, and he paid the driver and added a huge tip. When they came to the front door, his dad pulled out his keychain, the one Gregor had made him, from his pocket. He fanned out the keys with trembling fingers and found the right one. For once, the elevator wasn't broken, and they rode up to Gregor's hall. They opened the apartment door softly, not wanting to wake anyone. Gregor could see Lizzie asleep on the couch. From the bedroom, he could hear his grandma murmuring in her sleep, so she was okay. A light was on in the kitchen. His mother sat at the kitchen table, as still as a statue. Her hands were clasped together, and she stared fixedly at a small stain on a tablecloth. Gregor remembered seeing her that way so many nights after his dad had disappeared. He didn't know what to say. He didn't want to scare her, or shock her, or give her any more pain. So, he stepped into the light of the kitchen and said the one thing he knew she wanted to hear most in the world. Hey, Mom. We're home. And that's the end of the book. If you're interested in reading more of Gregor the Overlander, the next book in the series is called The Prophecy of Bane. It's a great book, too. Thanks for listening to our last day of Read-Aloud, and hope everyone has a wonderful summer.